Institutions Committee. Friday, February 28th, and starting off our morning looking at House Bill 50, which deals with doing an inventory of our state-owned properties. Goal of this legislation is to do an inventory, have it presented to the legislature. So that people can see what might be available for any buildings, but particularly land that's not going to be used for state purposes. It might be able to bring, again, a conversation about possibilities for developers to look at the properties for developing housing. So last evening, Representative Carter Casey and myself worked with John Gray. And this is a proposed new draft. So if the commissioner, BGS, could also correct. John's not able to this morning. And so let me go over, and Connor help me here. The changes. And you have the new draft. You need to have the old draft in front of you so you can also see what we changed. We did keep that the inventory would include state buildings and land. That was kept there. Change was on line 19. Concern was by some members of the committee, this report or gathering of the information needs to be requested by the commissioner. Commissioner BGS requests from each agency the data, the information. I was concerned that about the words when requested by. So we put in the head of each agency shall prepare and forward to the Commissioner BGS biannually. So it would be up to the agencies to prepare and forward. That's the first change. The next change is that we put in on lines 5 and 6. It's really more 6. That the commissioner would indicate whether the building is vacant or whether any land is unnecessary for state purposes. The other draft had not needed for state purposes. And then there's a new section that was added, lines 8 through 10, that the commissioner would report biannually to the House Institutions Committee and Senate Committee the inventory that is maintained under the first section of the bill, which is section E. So that's it.
This is all agreeable to me. I think Commissioner had a concern on G. Was it here?
So Commissioner, please identify yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services for the records. Thank you for sharing the language and asking me to give comment. I really appreciate the collaboration on trying to find a way to meet all of our needs. So on line 19, my comment is that before the language didn't prescribe when I collected the data, but we do it annually as I testified to. So line 19, by making this biannually, is, I would prefer annually because I have to submit this, I have to collect the data because this is going to be a part of the space book and it's going to be a part of that process. We'll be able to pull out data you need from it, but just overall. So I do it annually. By changing it to biannually, I don't want someone in the future to say we don't have to do it because it's used for other purposes. So that's just really a simple request. I find on.
Just want to be clear. So you're saying you're okay with striking out when requested by the commissioner? And,
Yes.
And instead of saying biannually, you say annually.
Correct, because Madam Chair, what I'm reading this to be is that in developing my space book, which is in another section of the law that in this section, It used to be when requested. So now it's saying I shall. That's how I'm interpreting it because you're removing when requested, but it's the format that I prescribe. So I will do that annually. I will collect, that's how I'm interpreting it. That's how I'll operate with this language.
So see, okay, so what it's really, just want people. Each agency needs to prepare and forward to the commissioner annually.
Mhm.
The way it is before was when requested by the commissioner, each agency would prepare forward.
And if I,
If there,
there's a
I want
shift.
people to understand that.
And Madam Chair, if you remember when I presented, I talked about we had documents where we had the information, and then we've had space books where we don't. And I believe I have to make the assumption, I wasn't there, that that shift came because it wasn't required to collect the additional land and building in a format from the other agencies. It was just under the BGS jurisdiction. So this is acceptable. I just, I would request that it just be annually. Biannually to annually.
The language struck out
Yeah.
when requested by the commissioner.
So to me, it's, I mean, I shall. That's how I'm reading that. Is that your intent?
Brian?
That all seems fine. I just wondered why was biannually in there to begin with.
I was making,
With line 8 on the back.
Yes.
yeah,
Commissioners shall biannually submit, but do you want to change that to annually? Why once a year? Once every 2 years? Are you thinking at the beginning of the biennium?
yeah, I mean, like, if, you know, if it's, I prefer it be annually on the other section, but yeah, that was good.
Biannual is twice a year. Biennial is every two, right? So if you want every two, it should be biennially.
It is biannually.
Biannual is twice a year. Biennial is every two. Yeah, two different words.
Semi-annual is twice a year.
Needs to be done once.
Annual is once every 2 years.
Year is annual.
Once a year would be annually. I was thinking every biennium on that, but,
You're thinking once
We're
every.
going to
That's
annual.
why it's biennially.
I want to figure that one out.
They're different.
So how do you spell once every 2 years?
The same as biennium. It's biennially.
How do you spell it?
Biennial.
Bienn?
IAL. And then LY if you want to, yeah.
I got a question that might they make that irrelevant. I mean, if we're talking and we just did, one thing is annually, you want the other part to be annually, not biannually, biennially. Or any other, you want.
Would you be happier if
we changed this
to
to
everyone?
Does it matter?
Have a right, here we come.
I'm gonna need the testimony on this subject one.
Connor, what?
So I'd be fine with it being annually. I was wondering if that would be too burdensome. I was thinking the presentation of the inventory would come with the presentation of the capital bill essentially, at the first half of the year, the first half of the biennium.
So what I would like to say to the committee is I'm gonna separate this a little bit. So for me, the section G is directing me to collect this annually, and and I will do that, and that's a part of my process and what we do in our procedure.
Okay.
Section, the new section J is really about when do you want it? You know, I don't think you have to have annually and biannual they can be different in the bill. So the item starting on line 8 on the back on page 2 of 2 is when do you want us to present that? If you want it at the beginning of a biennium,
The second.
then then be clear about that.
Okay.
You're fine with that, is what we're asking.
Well, I am acceptable to presenting the data to you in the manner in which you would like to receive it.
Okay, thank you.
So right now,
Nice.
Good.
I hear your enthusiasm.
how often do you print this Facebook? 'Cause
Do it every year.
do that every year.
And Madam Chair, can it just because I was so surprised, I wasn't, I just assumed the committee was very familiar with this document. And it's used for multiple reasons, as I told you, that's a tool. That is a tool for my staff. It's a tool for the department. It's a tool that's used for fee for space. So we update it in July of every year. Because as you know, departments move.
Mhm.
You may direct us to, sell a building. We may agree that we're going to sell a building. So that inventory is critical to our portfolio. So we do that annually. Now we're bringing back to that document a collection of the inventory for the vacant land and potential buildings of some other agencies, and you're requiring that incorporated into that. So when do you want that information? Do you want it at the beginning of or do you want it annual? And I can always come in and talk about that,
Right, yeah.
but at least presenting the information you want from this at the beginning of a legislative session, but you may want it next year, but I can do that. You don't have to legislate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll work with John.
So we'd essentially just be striking the by and the annually on line 19 on the first page,
Yeah.
and then specify on around line 8 that it would be at the beginning of the biennium,
Yeah.
right?
Beginning of the legislative body.
And then we could take out the whole debate on biennial and biennial.
Well, there's no debate.
It turns out according to AI.
I hope you.
And we'll have chain gangs at the same time.
Right. And trustee, and prison trustee.
This
Right.
could be, yeah, well,
Prison members.
I'll have Troy at the lead.
You know I don't do cabaret, Madam Chair. Let me
I
just,
know.
I'll let Ryan
It's so awesome.
I'm sure it would. Be.
Change.
It's just not, you're gonna have to keep it in your head.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
I will there's nothing more on this bill. You did ask, we are finalizing, there were about 4 items you asked for us to get back to you on. I took very good notes. And we are just wrapping that up. We were reevaluating our planning and reuse funds. We were asked to give you some information on the lease on the Rutland Garage. And we were asked to look at the cash spreadsheet that was presented to you by appropriations and the status of those projects. And I did have one of the members also ask me about how does the garage in St. Albans operate? So we are,
Which was just out of curiosity.
oh, well, see, I took
That has
that so
nothing to do-
serious. Oh, okay, so, I already have the answer, but,
I'm sorry.
That's the AOT garage?
no.
Which?
No, it's a parking garage.
Completely.
Yeah, and
I think it was
It's a separate thing.
that's just my own interest. It has nothing to do with the capital.
So, so the 3 items that you
Sorry.
talked about, no, that's okay. It's quite all right. It's very interesting. And so we are just wrapping that up. Joe and I were just going through the cash projects last evening, just to give you a status. I can tell you that it is true that money hasn't been moved, but it's assigned to projects that we funded also with bonded money.
You need to connect.
And so we're just trying to take that format that we were provided a copy of and do a simple overview for you. So I'm not sure when you would like.
There would be when we come back, probably from town meeting, because this afternoon, if we're gonna have time to continue markup. So we're gonna continue markup today. And we're gonna start with the correctional facilities.
Okay.
When we ended up section 3.
I'm almost done and I have it in a memo form, so I may forward it to you. Do you want me to send it to all the members or do you want to distribute it? I've addressed the memo to you, Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
just do that, because we won't get back to that.
And at least you can digest it and think about it. Okay?
So what I'd like to do, Connor, if you could get back to John.
Yeah,
Get
sure.
a clean draft, because we're gonna have to have another draft. But you can't vote, I don't want to vote out a version until we actually have the document, because it'll be a different draft number, and that would be what will need to be brought down to the clerk's office. And printed in my calendar. So, questions for the committee, where are we with the change in language? in the bill?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good.
So, that works. So if you could connect with John.
Make those changes and get clean drafts.
And it has to be edited.
Yep.
Has to be edited as
I think
well.
he's booked till 9:30, but
Yeah,
yeah,
so
make
I
sure he's-
spoke to the proofers because I
Yep.
want it in good shape to be submitted. Is our amendment now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoy your break.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah,
Enjoy
Maybe a
your
week
break.
without us.
oh, it'd be good to.
Right on the inside.
Yeah, we have to like
He has a cold.
realign when you return.
That did, yeah, it's probably thanks again.
And she was ready last night.
I bet.
She was ready, but it's got the cold I had, which is really. So, the other thing too, I had a conversation with the chair of House Judiciary last evening about the work crew, you know, and, we have different perspectives about it. And there's different goals for it. So one thing we talked about yesterday was maybe having a few of us here, working with a few there. And he was amenable to that. So he's gonna put together some folks. So I want to be clear here, because we got so many little groups working on little things. So in the next couple minutes, I just want to be clear on who's doing what, because we're really getting. started.
Well, I was gonna,
You
let me
wanna
write it
it
down. Yeah, let me write it down.
So for,
This is judiciary, right? This is.
yeah, this is, I can't remember, H 176, the work crew. So I think it's Brian, are you on there?
Yes, please.
Sean, Kevin?
Mhm.
And James?
Yep.
Right? Okay. For the dams, we've got Connor, Tina, Troy, and Joe. For the Wi-Fi DOC issue, we have Kevin and we have Brian. For the 3.1 for the private entities, for economic development and affordable housing, we have Connor, Mary, they're on
No,
there.
I think.
No,
Mary's
it's
Sean on it.
Mary took herself off.
Marius,
Recused, yeah.
You recused yourself
Because it's Bennington.
because of Bennington. Okay. Connor, Sean,
and,
Troy, and Joe.
and to that end, Scott Moore did respond this morning.
You did,
Available at
He did.
2:30.
and what did he say? Can you just summarize
He said,
it?
I have all the answers for you. It's fixed. No.
No, he's essentially presenting, he said he's gonna talk to JFO partner and he's available at 2:30 today if we can make it.
So has anyone heard at all what our schedule is this afternoon?
Ben said he's available for 11.
Conversations here. We may be back on the floor.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
I've heard this.
At what time? Because it's for BAA.
Yeah,
They don't
BAA.
want to hang it over the
Yeah.
week if there's an agreement. They don't want to hang it.
We didn't hear in time. We were just told,
It'd be sometime this afternoon.
yeah.
This is the hall rumor right currently.
Yeah, it depends. It depends what conference committee. I think they're pretty close to an agreement. If they have an agreement, sign off real quick, suspend rules, bring everything up. Has conference committee reports go to the Senate first. It's an up or down vote. You can't amend it. You either accept the report or you don't. So it goes to, it's a House bill, so it goes to the Senate first for the conference committee report. That passes, they need to suspend the rules to bring it over. We need to suspend the rules to bring it up. And then it comes before the House for a vote. You can only vote it up or down. So yes or no vote. And they want to get that done. If they don't want to hang it over for a week with us not being here. So just be flexible today. Come back here after the floor because we got kids apart at 11, right?
Yes.
But we don't have anything at 10:30, right? Unless, yeah, I was hoping maybe we could get a draft. It'd be
Hopefully.
nice if we could get H50 Connor draft.
Yep, I'm working on it.
John.
I'm working on it.
Okay, so it has to go down to the proofers. So